Hello there, and welcome to Community Life. Here we talk with community experts about their life journeys and how they came to the community world and see them as persons. So today we have a conversation with David Spinks, Tony Hawk's pro skater, and the founder of the CMX Community. Hello, David.
Hey, Yuri. Thanks for having me.
I really need your advice here. What product did you use some time ago and maybe still used to keep healthy and shiny hair?
I don't use much product. A big learning for me a long time ago, because I used to have hair as long as you, as I'm sure you picked up in your research. Big learning for me was to not clean it every day. I used to shampoo every day when I showered, and that like gets rid of all the natural oils. And so way too late in life, like after all the awkward middle school and high school, just like my hair was always really like not something I was proud of. And when I was older, I learned, okay, don't wash it every time. Let the natural oils go in. It makes it a lot nicer. Now, sometimes there's this everyday oil that I put in my beard and my hair, just like honestly, like once a month when I remember, but just let it be natural.
Oh, thank you very much for advice. So let's start from the beginning. Let's go to yourself. Tell me a little about your parents, when and where you were born, your childhood up to school, and describe a little what that time was like.
Yeah. So my parents are both immigrants to the U.S. My mom was born in Israel in a city called Rishon LeZion, and my dad was born in Dublin, Ireland. So very, very different places. It's very rare to have someone from Ireland marry someone from Israel. But my dad was born in Ireland. Then they moved to England when he was in his teens. And so he spent a lot of his childhood in England as well. He went to school for hotel management and just applied to hotels all over the world after he graduated and said, whoever gives me a job, that's where I'm going to move. And that's how he ended up in Israel. A hotel in Yaffo, just south of Tel Aviv, gave him a job. And my mom happened to be working at the same hotel. And my dad has a big nose and he got sunburned in Israel with his Irish skin. And my mom offered him some lotion, and that's how they met. And my mom, she was born in Israel. She's one of three siblings. They're both one of three siblings, one of three kids. And my mom's parents escaped the Holocaust to come to Israel. They were in Romania and Transylvania, actually, when Transylvania still existed. And my savta, my grandma, had a wild story, which I only got just before she recently died, where the Nazis arrived in her hometown and told them to start packing up and get ready to go on the trains. And that night, the Russian soldiers arrived and pushed the Nazis back. So they didn't have to go on the trains. The Russian soldiers ended up showing up at their doorstep one day and taking her sister away, and they've never seen her sister again. So like just a lot of wild things. They ended up escaping through Turkey. They had to fake documents. They had to hide in the bottom of a ship, like a wild story of escape to get to Israel. And then they ended up, settling in Israel, fighting in all the Israeli wars to establish Israel. And my mom was born, a decade or two later. And so, they met at the hotel, fell in love, and got married, moved to the US. I was born a year later. So when I was born, my parents had just come to the US. The only family we had here were my uncle and his kids. He had 4 kids, our cousins, and that was all the family we had. And both my parents came without degrees that would be useful for them here. My dad had hotel management, but he wasn't doing that anymore. My mom didn't have that degree. She went to the military in Israel. And so they've always just been very scrappy people. My mom got part-time teaching jobs, babysitting, camp counselor, just like she would do every job. To this day, she still does 3 to 4 jobs. And my dad started working with my uncle, and he started doing a plush toy sales, so like stuffed animals. If you're in Long Island or Jersey or New York, if you go to a carnival or an arcade, there's a very good chance you're like playing to win stuffed animals that my dad sold to them. And but he's just always been like an independent sales hustler. I used to go with him to the warehouse in Jersey and help him offload the container ships, and he would go to carnivals with me and just send me in because I was like a cute little kid. And he'd say, just like, go find the guy who buys all of their plush toys. And I'd go in with his big binder, and I'd go up to like these carnies who are running the games. I'd be like, hey, who's in charge of your toys, of your merch purchases? And they'd point me to him. And then once I find him, I go back to my dad. I'm like, I found him. And I bring him straight to the guy. So everyone would talk to a little kid, but not a sales guy. So he used me wisely. And yeah, I grew up in Oceanside, which is right next to the town where I grew up, Long Beach, New York, which is a really unique like barrier island off of Long Island, just south of New York City. It's about an hour train from New York City. And so it's a really weird place because it's kind of like California surfer vibes, but also like Brooklyn, Queens vibes. It's a very unique place. It's very island mentality, even though it's a city and we have, a lot of people, it's pretty diverse. It had this like island mentality. A lot of people never leave Long Beach. It's a place where a lot of people grow up and then have kids, and then their kids have kids, and it's just like multi-generational place. It's a very unique place. And that's where I grew up.
What about this island mentality for those who don't know what it means?
It's just like it's laid back. I wouldn't say there's a lot of like ambition necessarily. It's very chill. A lot of people will grow up there and like work at restaurants and bars there, and just like it's kind of insular and isolated from other places, so everyone kind of knows everybody. And it's just, it's a place that people end up staying for their whole lives. Like it's a place that people love and hate, but love enough and have such deep roots there that they stay. So that's kind of what I mean by like an island mentality.
Sounds very similar to a community.
Well, everywhere is a community. It's its own unique kind of community, which, growing up there, we were outsiders. My mom being from Israel, my dad being from Ireland. We didn't have roots. We didn't have longevity there. We didn't know a lot of people. And we were different. I felt different. I never really felt like I belonged in Long Beach, which when you're a kid growing up somewhere, you don't know anything else. So that's your whole world. And you don't know that you don't fit in because that's not even the language you have yet. You're just like, why am I stressed? Why do I feel anxious? Why can't I make friends? Why can't I feel connected? Why do I get kind of left out? You're just like trying so hard to feel okay. And you don't know that there's like this whole world out there. And that was, a lot of my childhood. I would say like younger childhood was pretty good. But once I got into kind of middle school when social dynamics really start coming into play, that's where I really started feeling more isolated from my local community. And that's not coincidentally when I also started moving into internet communities and finding community online, because that's ultimately how I broke out of that bubble.
And how was your school time in general? How did it shape you?
I was always a really good student. My parents had very, very high expectations. So, I always had to be an A student all the way through.
Did you like it?
Yeah, I think I did. For a while. And some subjects more than others. I really liked math when I was younger, but then I stopped liking it later once it got harder. I really liked English. I always liked English. I liked writing, reading. I still write script because my 6th grade teacher was really great and taught me how to write scripts. So when I write, I still write. One of my secret talents is I have really beautiful script handwriting. So I liked school. I was definitely a little bit of like a teacher's pet as well. I liked, getting the acknowledgments and answering questions a lot and helping the teacher. I was a really good kid. Like I think I've always been, and this is probably from my parents as well, but I've always been like very morally driven. Like what's the right thing to do? How do I be a good kid? How do I be kind? How do I be polite? Like I used to really like talking to adults more than kids, actually. Like I would have full conversations with adults at like when all the kids were playing. Yeah, so school is good. I was also very into athletics. I played pretty much every single sport. Lacrosse was my biggest sport. I was really competitive in lacrosse, and when I was younger in like middle school and stuff, I was one of the better players in the region. Then everyone got a lot bigger than me, and I stayed really skinny. So I also just like again felt really not like I belong in that community. It was very like bro-y, tough guy. And I dealt with like anti-Semitism and I don't know, just a lot of stuff that made me feel like an outsider there too. But I still love sports. I played basketball. I played a lot of tennis, hockey, volleyball, baseball, like soccer. I played everything. And I was always very, very competitive. I've always been very competitive in academics and sports. I think in some ways it was like how I would feel valued and enough, because I wasn't feeling valued or enough in like social spaces. But sports is something that there's a clear score and you can win and you can be better. It's a physical challenge. And so regardless of what anyone thought of me off the field, on the field, if I would, play really well and we'd win the game, then I'd get that kind of social validation that I was craving in some ways.
Was it because of your parents' needs?
Probably. It's always, I think, both, right? Like, I think my parents, both being immigrants coming to the U.S., really wanted me to be successful. And I have a little sister as well. She's 4.5 years younger than me. I think they really wanted us to have the things that they didn't have. So they came in without that social structure. So they were constantly setting up play dates and meeting people and networking. They just, they have to work multiple jobs and really, hustle to succeed and pay for food and pay for a house. And we had a good life. We were probably like lower middle class. We weren't, we didn't have a lot. We had to be really, really frugal basically, but we always had food on the table. We always had a house always had a roof over our head. But I think they always wanted more for me. And they, my they're both really smart. My dad's very, very book smart. My mom is very, very street smart. And I think they just like they just had high standards. They had very high standards, which was hard because it was like high school. I remember I actually sat my parents down and had a conversation with them. And I said, I would like to focus more on my social life and less on school and academics. And like, that probably means my grades are going to slip, but this is really important to me. And they were like, they were actually, I give them a lot of credit. We're really receptive and kind and appreciated that. Like I spoke to them about it that way, but I was like so focused on academics and sports and everything. In my head, I was like, maybe this is why I'm like struggling socially. And like wanted to be able to have a little bit more free time to spend with other people and explore that kind of social life, which I ended up finding community in person in high school, in other places. But yeah.
Was you a nerd?
Yeah, in some ways. Yeah, like I did a lot of nerdy things. I was in like Model Congress and Odyssey of the Mind. So Model Congress is where you like debate people. So I always loved debating. And Odyssey of the Mind was this really nerdy thing growing up where like you have to problem solve and create these performances and plays that it's kind of like putting together science experiment. And it's It's a whole thing. Look up Odyssey of the Mind. I did that for 4 or 5 years, and we went to the world competition. Our team was really good at that. I was a math Olympiad, so yeah, I was kind of like a bookworm. But I guess that was kind of some of the clash in my identity, as I was both, doing those things, but I also wanted to be part of like the cool groups, and I played every sport, and I was like around a lot of jocks, and I always wanted, and I think maybe less so only very recently, but for most of my life, I always really wanted and liked being the person who was part of lots of different groups.
Mhm.
I didn't really want to only have one group and be really deep with it. I liked being the guy that could like hang out with the book nerds, hang out with the jocks, hang out with the weird creative people, go to weird music shows, and like know everybody. And that's kind of who I became when I went to college. I like learned how to be, a more social person, how to engage. I didn't have any baggage or history from high school. So when I got to college, that's exactly how I was. I like knew everybody. I was friends with every sports team, every frat, every group. I worked in the college union and helped organize events for the school. And in some ways, that's probably what led me to like the work I've done with CMX and the world I do today, where like I like being the kind of node, the connector between all these different people. Although now in my more, my adult years, I feel a lot more like I only need my core group. I don't need all these other groups. But I would say that's only changed in the last, 3 years or so.
But how did you choose between different, let's say, hangouts if you had to go to both some places at one time?
Well, this was the ironic thing probably in high school was, more like middle school and then early high school was maybe because I was trying to hop around so much and be part of everyone's group, I wasn't really part of anyone's group.
Mm.
And so like I wouldn't be invited to a lot of things, and I would feel excluded. And I think in some ways, just the way people are in high school and middle school, like they didn't like that I would want to be friends with other groups, and so they would exclude me because they'd say like, well, you clearly want to be friends with the other kids, the cooler kids or something. So maybe that was part of it. In college, I mean, I went to a small school, so there wasn't that much going on. It was a small school in the middle of nowhere. And I ended up joining a fraternity, so that dictated a lot of the events and parties I would go to. But it's just like I liked walking around campus, going to class, and just being able to say hi to 50 people on the way to class. Like I just liked being that person,
But it's, from some point of view, it's really very strange. It's like exclusion by diversity, which is like,
yeah.
Okay,
and
about the debates, did you debate to defend your point of view or just to debate?
Yeah, so the way it worked is there would be a topic, and you could raise your hand to sign up for a topic, but each topic will have two sides, and you don't get to choose your side.
Mm-hmm.
So you choose a topic, and then your side either for or against. And so you'd often have to debate a side that you don't necessarily personally believe in, which is really fun. I really enjoy that process.
Okay, I've seen the video of all those amazing tricks you've done in the Tony Hawks. And have you tried skating in real life?
Yeah, being in this like surfer town, a lot of people skated. Everybody surfed. I tried skateboarding, like trick skating, a number of times. I was never good at it. It never really stuck with me. I would just get hurt. I get hurt easily. Even I play basketball a lot right now. I'm just constantly hurt. But I really like longboarding. So actually, when I was a kid, I bought this longboard off this older kid that was 5 feet long. So for a skateboard, that's extremely long. It was a flex deck, and it would bounce, and you could put like 3 people on it and all skate together. And one day it was stolen and broken in half, and I'm still heartbroken over that. But I really liked longboarding and cruising. I never really got into trick skating, but Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4 was where I could beat all the real skaters in the video game.
I totally understand you. That's how I learned soccer.
Oh yeah, FIFA.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, and when did community step into your life? Or maybe did you even you step into the community world?
Like as a profession or just in my life?
Like when you understand that you want to, yeah, more a professional way.
Yeah, I mean, I think like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4 was the first experience I had of online forums and communities. Back then it was IRC, and I'd participate in IRC, and we had a clan for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4 that I co-founded, and we started a website for it and a forum, and so it just became a pretty successful community for people who played the game, and I was community managing. I was running community contests, engagements, moderating trolls, and there were a lot of trolls. And it was like the work we do today as community managers. I was doing this when I was 13, 14 years old. And I think like I just started really getting comfortable with interacting with strangers on the internet way before it was normal to be comfortable interacting with strangers on the internet, especially when you're as young as I was. So I just started like through that. I learned about other online communities. I play other online games. One fun fact about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4 is it was the first game that was specifically designed for PlayStation to be played online. So it was kind of like this new era of online gaming on a console. Like before you could only do it on a computer, this was on a console. And so I just started, getting more and more plugged into internet communities through that, and signed up for like Dead Journal and Live Journal and MySpace when it came out, and Friendster, and just like every online platform that was popular at any point, I was on it. And then it wasn't until college that I started connecting online communities to business, because I went to school for business, but everything that they were teaching was very like traditional marketing, assembly line management, just like things that I'm like, I am not interested in this at all. And I'm like, there's this whole revolution happening on the internet, and this is how people are communicating now. Why aren't we talking about any of this? And I got an internship before my senior year at Reuter Finn, as a PR firm in the web department. And so that's where I started like doing social media work and blogging and web design and stuff for these big clients. That internship is where I first learned about Twitter. My boss called me into his office and he was like, there's this weird thing called Twitter. Go figure out what it is and come back and report back to me. And I went on there. I signed up. You can still see my first tweet was from that summer. And I came back, and his name was Jan, my boss. I was like, Jan, I have no fucking clue what this is. And I was like, it's probably not going to go anywhere. Anyway, so yeah, there are a couple books like Tribes from Seth Godin and Groundswell from Charlene Lee that was starting to talk about this world of, they weren't really always using like community-led business or community business. It was still kind of social media and stuff, but I started connecting the dots around then. And then my first job out of college was a community manager. So that my whole career has been in community management, which is pretty unique.
So anyway, it was you started from social media management, and I saw that you somehow were as the CEO of SEO media. So how did you turn to SEO?
CEO of SEO media? That's
yeah.
I don't think so. SEO media?
Yeah, because I went to the website What Spinks Thinks. And there were, hi there, I'm David, but my friends just call me Spinks. I'm the CEO of SEO Media, where we are building the community industry. Through SEO, maybe it was not
what? Oh, you know what happened? No, I know what happened. What Spinks Thinks was my website a long time ago, and I forgot to renew the domain. And so someone else bought it, and they just plugged in SEO instead of CMX on all these things because they're just milking it for SEO now. So yeah, I fucked that up. If anyone wants to buy back what Spinks thinks for me, I'd appreciate it because it's very confusing.
It's not your site, unfortunately.
It's not anymore. I know.
Okay. So let's go back a little. I found a photo on your dad's Facebook account where there was a blue Power Ranger, you, Jeremy, a smaller girl. I guess it was Sarah, maybe your sister, and Allison. Was it Allison that is your wife?
There's a picture with Jeremy, my sister, and Allison,
and blue
and
Power
Ranger. When was this from?
Was from your dad's Facebook account. It was a long time ago.
No, I met Allison, my wife, in college. So
it wasn't
different Allison, I guess. Yeah.
How many Allisons did you have in your life?
I guess at least 2.
Okay.
Yeah, so my wife and I met freshman year of college, 17 years ago.
Yeah, and how did you meet?
I was walking past the library with my friend Matt, and Matt was in a class with her, and so he knew her, and he walked up to her and said hi as they were walking by, and I was just like,
what?
I was like, who is that? And he was like, oh, that's Allison Malfisi, and I just was like, I was just like, I love this person. and then like he blew up my spot. He like saw her at a party again later, and he was like, hey, my friend Spinks has a crush on you. And she was like, who the fuck is Spinks? So she looked me up on, it was like MySpace and AIM back then is what we used. And we just started talking on AIM first. And she had her roommate, who was her good friend, like interrogated me over AIM and asked me 1,000 questions, and I guess I passed that test. And we were just friends for a while. She had a boyfriend when we met, and so we were just friends. You know, we're very respectful, but there was always clearly a connection there, and eventually, she became my girlfriend.
You know, it seems like you and Allison were together forever. Is she your first love?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
Before her, I never really had a relationship that lasted more than like 3 months. A lot of like flings, but definitely never love.
I guess that your whole life happened together.
Yeah,
let's say normal life.
Totally. We've become different people. We've gone through many phases of who we are together. I feel like we're just becoming more and more of the same person. But yeah, we've spent a long time together. We've had a lot of challenges. We were long distance for 3.5 years from New York to San Francisco. We've been through a lot together.
Now going back. Okay.
Yeah, now we're going back to New York. That's right.
Yeah, I saw also that one of your posts that 6 years ago I slipped on some ice. It was a year ago. And was that falling planned?
Yeah. Did you watch the video?
Yeah. It was very funny.
Yeah,
it was very touchy, but from the first part, it was very funny.
Oh, it's meant to be. It's my proposal video. I'm sure people can find it. I think it's like public on my Facebook page.
Yeah.
That was probably the most engagement I've ever gotten on a social media post. Yeah, so that the story behind that too was she and I started to date, and we were like together. By the end of sophomore year, finally, it was like, all right, we're together, we're boyfriend and girlfriend, we're exclusive. And then we went into the summer, and she just still like felt very conflicted and confused and wasn't sure what she wanted to do. And so she ended up breaking up with me, and like that like broke my heart. And I spent that whole summer kind of just getting over it. And then we got back junior year and she realized like, actually, I love you. And I want to be together. But I was like, well, I just like got over you and you broke my heart. So, and I was like a junior in college. I was like, so we like, we're friends again and we would interact a lot and hang out a lot, but like we weren't together. And so she, basically it was like I had to work for her for a year and then she had to work for me, that we got back together officially. And we've been together ever since. But that ice rink was the first date that we had when we started getting back together, where I like started opening up to the idea again of us being together. And I remember we like held hands on that ice rink and that felt like a really scary thing because it was like reopening up myself to that possibility and being together. It's the ice rink in Bryant Park in New York City. And so so that's where we were going to a show in New York. I had bought the ring already and I was like, the show's kind of close to the ice rink. I'm like, that could be a good place to do it because we have so much history there. And I remember I like waited in line and she was like coming to meet me and she was like an hour late, which she can be late to things. And it was freaking me out because once you're past a point on the line, they won't let anyone else on. And so I waited on this line for like 45 minutes. She's still not there. And we're way past the point now where they don't let people add on afterward. I get all the way to the front of the line and the bouncer's like, all right, go ahead. It's this huge guy. And I'm like, hey man, my girlfriend's coming. Like, he's like, dude, no, the point of adding someone in line was way back there. And I was like, dude, you got to help me out. And I just show him the ring and he was just like, oh shit. He's like, you're about to do that now? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you're not allowed to do that on the ice rink, right? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do it anyway. He's like, all right, I'll give you 5 more minutes. And he let me wait there for 5 minutes. And she came just in time. And she came running with bags. She's like, and she had no idea any of this. So I'm like sweating and freaking out. And she has no idea what's going on. And she gets there. We get on the ice rink. And now we also didn't have a lot of time because the show was coming up. So I was like, I have to do it pretty early in here. So we like did 3 laps. My heart was just like pounding out of my chest. And I'm like, fuck it, I have to do it. So I like pull out my phone. I turn on the video and I just start recording. And we find 2 girls on the side. And I'm just like, hey, can you take our picture? And I whisper, it's already recording. Just keep recording, which you could hear me say in the video. Yeah. And then we go to take the picture and I pretend to slip on the ice and she laughs at me and tries to pick me up, but I won't get up. And she realizes I'm on one knee and then just seeing everyone else like realize what's happening and stop and start cheering. It was like, it felt like a movie. And then the best part was the New Yorker guy who worked at the ice rink at the end. He was just like, congratulations. All right, everyone keep moving.
Yeah, it was awesome part. Congratulations, keep moving. It was really funny. And I saw once again a post of you in 2017 about the Costco wedding, and the mother of Allison told, don't even go there, you two. Was it a joke or not?
to do what? A Costco wedding?
Yeah.
That was definitely a joke.
And from Allison's mother's side,
she was just not going to allow that at all. Yeah, we ended up getting married in my hometown in Long Beach, which we were going to get married here in San Francisco. But we ended up getting married in New York, closer to family, and it ended up being really nice. Actually, it was cool to bring all of my friends from San Francisco to my hometown where I grew up. We all went to the beach. We like showed them the whole Long Beach experience, which it's a great place for a wedding. So it worked out great.
And the whole family. and I understand you have a rather big family from both sides.
My wife has a big family. My family is pretty small. We have some family still in Israel. I have 2 uncles on my mom's side. I have an aunt and uncle on my dad's side, but neither of them had kids. On my mom's side, both of them have kids. So my family's pretty small, especially in the US. Like I said, there's only a few of us. My wife's family is huge. Her mom had 7 siblings, I think. And like most of them all have kids. It's big Irish family. And then on her dad's side, it's smaller. She's Irish and Italian, and I'm Irish Israeli. So the Italian side's small, but yeah, we always go to her families for Christmas, and it's huge Irish family.
Nice, nice. I can only imagine what it looks like, but I guess it's super cool.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's weird for me because I grew up with basically just like my parents and my uncle and a few cousins. We never had a big family. We never had big family gatherings. Both, my grandfathers died before I was born. Well, one right before, one right after, but I was like an infant. I never remember him. And my grandmothers both live in England and Israel. So like we're pretty removed from family, which is part of why we're moving back to New York now, because I want our kid Luca to be around family in a way that I didn't have that.
Oh, that's nice. And what about your sister? What kind of brother were you, and are you still?
If you ask her, it might be a different story.
We will do that later. Let's start.
The next interview follow up with Sarah.
Yeah.
Her name's Sarah Spinks. We are very close today. When growing up, we were always close, but like we were 4.5 years apart, so the age gap was pretty big. So we were never like friends. We were more siblings than friends, Yeah. We shared a bunk bed in the same room for several years when we were really little. We were siblings. We would fight a lot. She would always, she always tell stories about how I used to like practice my WWF wrestling moves on her, which is not false. Gotta practice,
Yeah.
just in case you could be The Rock one day. And so I mean we would fight and play, and I think today we're a lot closer as we've gotten older and the age gap mattered less. We've become much more close, but we were never like in the same school at the same time. We always had that distance.
Okay, I see. By the way, congratulations on winning. Just let me one thing on winning the American Ninja Warrior.
Did I win Ninja Warrior?
Yeah, but I saw that. Congratulations! It was really very fun. It was a guy very similar to you, and
he just looks like me.
It was very fun when some of your friends congratulated you on winning this. Right. Do you remember your meeting the same guy like you in Dolores Park on 2015?
Yeah, my doppelganger.
Yeah, what it was like? Can you tell us a little about this story?
Yeah, so Dolores Park is a really beautiful park in San Francisco that I used to live right next to. And we would go there all the time, like every weekend. It's a big party park. You go there and everyone is drinking and smoking weed, and there'll be like 3 DJs set up, and it's just a beautiful view of San Francisco. It's just like always a great time there. And we were just sitting there, and this is when I had my long flowing hair, and I had like a look about me, and I was just standing there, and all my friends were sitting in front of me, and they all just like look to the side of me at the same time. And I was like, what are you all looking at? And my one friend just goes, Spinks! And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I look, and this guy like walked up because he like saw them pointing and heard them yell something. So he like walked up, and we just like looked at each other, and we're just like, ah! And like that picture was like that moment of us seeing each other, and we just looked exactly the same. It was very weird.
Yeah, it was. I don't know what is the probability of meeting the same looking person.
Yeah,
but
I guess it happens to me a decent amount. Like I have a face that people recognize, or I look like other people a lot. Like I get it all the time. People who know me are like regularly sending me a picture of someone at a bar, or someone at an event. They're like, "Oh, it's you," and I'm like, that doesn't look like me, but people just like see my face in other people's faces, I guess. There's a baseball player called Hunter Pence on the San Francisco Giants. who apparently I look a lot like. I do look a lot like him, especially, if I had the Giants hats on and I like bug out my eyes, like we look very much alike. And so when the Giants won the World Series, we were celebrating outside the stadium, and I was like, people were asking me to take pictures with them because I look so much like Hunter Pence, and they'll be like, Hunter. That was a fun night.
Yeah, it's really very funny. Okay, you were asked and still asking a lot of questions on Facebook, like for band recommendation for the wedding, where to hold the CMX team retreat, where to stay. And do you always listen to what people advise you?
No, I like asking for advice to get different perspectives that I otherwise wouldn't get. I actually think it's generally bad to take people's advice. It's kind of a cop out to say like, I'm not going to make my own decision. I'm just going to default to this other person's decision. I think people's advice are always going to be colored by their own worldview and experience and privilege and and timing. Like something that worked a year ago might not work today. So any advice, I think you always just have to look at as a way of helping you see a new perspective or get a new idea, but you still have to make the decision.
And how you decide if you, I don't know, see two really very interesting advices, how you decide what to choose?
Decision making is hard at some point.
Okay, we can skip it, whatever.
Let's
not make it hard, because it's not the point. I want to make it so easy for you, so you were just smiling every
it's
time.
All good. Yeah. No, decision making. I've always had a little bit of a hard time with decision making. It's feeling like you need to be a perfectionist and have the right answer, I think, is the hardest thing. I think the key is to just like get enough information that you feel educated, and then know that you're going to be taking a risk and just make the decision.
Okay, I see. Let's go a little to your events parts of life. How many events have you spoken at?
Oh, I don't know. 100 probably, about.
Okay, what was the first one?
Ooh, first event I ever spoke at. The first one that I ever gave an actual like solo talk is actually a good story. I was the director of community for a company called Zarly, and our CEO was the keynote speaker for this event, and he had to cancel last minute. And so they were like, David, go give this keynote. And this was his talk. I had to go give his talk, and I had 1 day to prepare, and I had to like literally memorize his talk and like go there and be the keynote speaker. And I had never been a keynote speaker before. I had never given I don't think I'd given a solo talk before that. I can't think of one that I did. And I was so nervous. I wanted to throw up. I was so nervous. But I did it, and I went up and I, delivered the talk, and it went really well. And people they were like, oh, I can't believe you just learned. They all knew that he canceled and had to do it overnight. And I got so many compliments that it seemed like it was my talk and it went really well. And that ended up giving me a lot more confidence to be able to speak and know that I could be good at it. But that was, I got thrown into the fire basically with public speaking.
If everything will be okay, it will be okay. And I can only imagine, what did you feel that time? It's so stressful, I guess.
Yeah. Especially when it's not your own words and not your own content. That's even more stressful to me. When I give talks now, I don't have a script. I just know the content and I just talk about it live in a fluid way. But having to hit on someone else's points and not be familiar, that's much harder for me to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I guess Model Congress is actually what made me a lot less afraid of public speaking, because that was public speaking pretty much. You'd have to debate, and the debate was I would speak for 2.5 minutes and then the other person would speak for 2.5 minutes. So like I had to get comfortable. And some of these model congresses, we'd go and compete against other schools. There would be like 100, 200 people watching you. It was like a pretty big audience, and you're trying to like win. Like it's not just speaking, you're literally trying to convince them of a point. So I remember feeling really scared of public speaking before Model Congress, and that's kind of what helped me get more comfortable with it.
Cool stuff, I guess, for everyone to have those type of yeah. Okay, you wrote in December 2018 that you broke your wrist the third time. Was it the last so far?
Yeah, I've not broken it again. Thank God. Yes, I've broken my wrists 3 times. I've broken this one twice and this one once. My left one twice, right one, left one twice, right one once. Left one has a screw in it now, and I had to get surgery. All from playing basketball. I play a lot of basketball. I love basketball. It's like my joy. It's my addiction. But I can play, you know, kind of aggressively, or I play like kind of sneaky. Like I like get rebounds people don't expect, and I get layups and like putbacks that people don't expect. So they get frustrated, and I end up getting fouled a lot. And I'm also not very heavy. I'm kind of easy to throw around, especially when I'm planted, I'm good. But when I'm in the air, and I launch into the air a lot, I do a lot of like acrobatic layups and stuff. And so all 3 times that I've broken my wrists, it's from someone getting mad and pushing me while I was in the air. Yeah. And so I lost my center of gravity, and I would fall onto my hands, and I broke my wrist 3 times that way.
No way. And what was the stupidest injury you've ever had?
Stupidest injury I've ever had. I mean, I don't know that I would say this is stupid. My parents would say it was stupid, but I broke my jaw in high school, my senior year of high school, which is also why I quit lacrosse. I was in a mosh pit. Like my first like in-person community experience was in hardcore music, the hardcore music scene. Which if you don't know hardcore music, it's like that really deep, grungy, growling, screaming that people hate. They're like, this sounds like noise. But boy, you go to one of those shows, there's no stronger feeling of community and adrenaline and emotion that you're all sharing. It's just like, it's a really, really powerful thing. Once you go to a show, you understand that music better. If you just hear it without ever going to a show, you'll always think it's just noise. But the mosh pits there are really intense, and it's not pushing. You're not allowed, you're not supposed to push each other. You're not even really supposed to touch each other. It's like dancing. There moves you do, like dance form, and it involves like a lot of punches and kicks, but you're just punching and kicking and swinging into the air. You're doing spin kicks, you're doing these windmills. I caught a spin kick from a really large man in the jaw. And it shattered my back tooth. And I went to the bathroom and spit out blood and teeth and washed my mouth out. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm good. And I went back in the mosh pit and got home, went to bed, woke up the next morning, and I sat down to eat breakfast with my parents, and I couldn't eat my cereal because my teeth weren't lining up anymore. Like I couldn't actually close my teeth or chew. And so I went to the dentist and the orthopedic surgeon. They took x-rays, and they were like, your jaw is broken in 3 places. I broke it here, and then up right on the joint. They're like, we have to wire it shut for 6 to 8 weeks. So I had my jaw wired shut, my teeth clenched for 6 to 8 weeks. It ended up being the full 8 weeks, which is, why I didn't play lacrosse. I didn't play that season, which is when everyone got selected for college. So that blew that up. Had to go on a cruise ship, all you can eat buffets, but I had to drink everything through a straw. I had everything blended. I had filet mignon, I had lobster bisque, I had a burger with fries, pizza, and you name it, I had it blended and I drank it. And that was probably the stupidest injury I've had.
Yeah, it's like a hack to your rapid fire questions about about your favorite food.
Yeah, smoothie. Everything can be a smoothie.
Yeah. Okay, you wrote a very touchy story about your savta, and
Yeah.
said that in the mid of 60s she started learning English just to be able to talk to you, your sisters and cousins.
Yeah.
So how many languages do you know?
I only know, I mean, I'm only fluent in English. I speak a little, very little bit of Spanish and even less Hebrew. I
Mhm.
wish I learned more Hebrew. My mom made the decision not to teach us Hebrew when we were kids because they really wanted us to be great at English.
Mm.
Again, like coming as immigrants and just like wanting us to fit in. She didn't want me to have an accent or be slow with English. So they chose not to teach me Hebrew, which in hindsight, I think we wish that we did. But actually, I also really wish I learned it before my Sapta passed away because I never really got to have a direct conversation with her. She spoke a little bit of English that she learned, yeah, just to speak to us when she was
Mm.
in her 60s, which is wild. She spoke like 6 languages. She was something else. I actually we're moving back to New York. There's a lot of really good Hebrew class programs there. So during my sabbatical, it's one thing I want to do is go take Hebrew classes again. And yeah, Spanish I learned from school, and I used to work at a Mexican restaurant for many years, and I would hang out with the chefs all the time and the cooks and the dishwashers. And they would make fun of me in Spanish, but then they would also teach me Spanish, and I just became friends with them, and that's mostly how I learned like conversational Spanish.
I guess it's the best way. You can only
Yeah.
imagine. And have you ever thought of learning some other languages?
Um, no, not really. Hebrew is like a big one for me. I feel very connected to my Israeli roots and my family, and I go back to Israel fairly often. And there's something about speaking Hebrew that I feel is really connecting. Like if you meet someone who speaks Hebrew and they realize you speak Hebrew, you just
Mm.
immediately have this really strong connection. So even the little bit I know, it's always a little bit. I'm like, oh, it'd be really cool if I could actually have a full conversation. So maybe I'll learn it. We'll see if I can actually stick with it. It's
Well,
hard.
we'll
It's hard to
see.
learn a
We'll see.
language.
I always wanted to ask and always forget, what is the CMX abbreviation stands for?
It was just Community Management X is what it was inspired by, but I specifically didn't want to have community in the name or community management in the name because there are a lot of connotations around it that I wanted
Mm.
to kind of redefine and reframe. So, yeah, Community Management X.
And what X stands for, or
It's
just
just
X?
like a variable. Honestly, just like sounds cool and is kind of like a variable. Like you could apply community to everything. It's like an amplifier of anything that you build. Kind of like SpaceX. What does the X mean for SpaceX? Space exploration. I don't know. You could probably mix it up, but it just sounds cool.
You can choose whatever you like.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I saw you traveling a lot by breweries. So,
Yeah.
what is your favorite drink?
My favorite beer or drink?
A drink or beer? I don't know.
Uh, that's a good question. I mean, yeah, I don't know if I have like one single one. I really like going to breweries and trying lots of different beers. Um, Almanac is a local brewery that I really like, and they do all seasonal beers. They do a lot of really good sours, so I get a lot of Almanac
Mhm.
beers whenever I can find that on tap. Montauk has a brewery that's actually really good, and my wife and I love it. We love Montauk's just like really awesome fishing town. Now it's like kind of expensive and more resorty, but it's just a really cool, chill beach town at the end of Long Island. And they have a Montauk brewery there, so we love our Montauk beers.
So, beer is your most favorite drink.
Uh, I mean, of all the drinks, no. I don't know. I like iced tea. I drink a lot of kombucha actually.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, kombucha is like a good way for me to not drink beer because it kind of scratches the same itch. It's kind of bubbly and it kind of tastes like a sour beer in a way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm trying to drink less. I get into a routine where like I'll have a drink at the end of the day to wind down a lot. I'm not like a heavy drinker anymore. In college I used to drink more, but or younger years, but either way, I'm just trying to cut out as much as possible. So kombucha has been a really good replacement. Um, I don't know, I love a good whiskey as well. I love a good whiskey, good bourbon, good Manhattan or old fashioned. I really like that. It's a nice cozy drink.
For what occasion?
Um, Honestly, sometimes it's just like wind down at the end of the day with a glass of whiskey, or I like having it at. I like going to like a nice cocktail bar with a friend, and like just having a good deep one-on-one conversation with someone over some like really good Manhattans or something. You know, I think that's my favorite time to have a good cocktail. It's like you really want to get into the shit with a friend.
I see. Yeah, with a friend, it's totally tastes different.
I think that's like the hardest thing to not drink is like missing out on that like there's nothing like having a one-on-one with a friend over, you know, a good drink. And it's like you take out the drink and it's just like not the same.
Yeah, totally agree. Okay, and how did your dry January went so far?
It was good. Yeah, I do dry January every year. Another way that I like keep drinking in check. And then every year I started adding more things. So, yeah, I started with drinking. Then I added smoking weed. Then I added coffee. And actually 2 years ago I added coffee. I haven't had coffee since, so I don't drink coffee anymore. Only tea. And this year we also added no TV and no video games and no social media on our phones, at least. And so I was reading a lot. It was really nice. I really enjoyed it. Dry Januaries. I really like the idea of doing full resets on things. So anything, I don't have a drinking problem, I don't think. But I get into a habit where it becomes a default. Same with coffee, same with watching TV. Like my wife and I love TV, but we'll find ourselves like defaulting to it every night at the same time. And I really like the idea of taking a pause on something and kind of resetting and then being able to add that thing back in much more thoughtfully. So every time I do dry January, when I do add drinking back in, I can do it really intentionally and only choose to do it in the times where I feel like it's additive and not doing it just because it's the default.
I see. You know, I really have so many questions, but we are running out of time. So the last interesting question, but last but not least, you had a post on 2017, like you are on the beach and having post CMX solo time. And tired yet, but emotionally re-energized and deeply grateful. So what does solo time mean for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I was never good at being alone my whole life. I think that was part of that struggle, is I craved being connected to people and interacting with people and being included so much. I just couldn't enjoy my own company. I think I've always had a hard time feeling like I'm enough without the validation from others. Practicing self-love. Like these are things that I think I've changed a lot in the last few years, but have always struggled with, and only now have I really started to learn to love myself and enjoy spending time with myself and actually feeling recharged by it. So Summit is always a big one because it's like I empty all of my extroversion out for like the whole month, and I can't talk to anybody the next day. The next day after Summit, I always do some sort of solo time in nature. That one was in LA, so I went to the beach. But you know, in SF, or when we did it in Portland, I just go do a long solo hike. But I've learned that I actually need that regularly, not just after a big social event, but I really, really value having alone time in nature. And it's very different than time in nature with friends, which I do a lot of that too. I go hiking with my family, I go hiking with friends. When you do that, you're like, you have to match each other's pace. And I like to stop and just like take it in, like forest bathe. You know, I like to just like breathe and hear and smell. And I could stay there for half an hour sometimes. And you can't do that when you're with other people.
Yeah.
And you just like, you feel like compelled to have a conversation. When you're alone, you end up having a conversation with yourself. And I find that I'm able to process so much more. It's a form of meditation in a way. I'm able to like work through things. There's no distraction. It's just something that I've learned about myself that is really, really powerful for coming back to center, for working through difficult situations, for feeling recharged. If I go too long without solo time in nature, I feel like a rising kind of anxiety or stress, like things that I need to get out. So yeah, that's why I do that.
I would love to continue this conversation so much, but we're once again running out of time. So just few rapid fire questions. By the way, I learned rapid fire questions from you.
Nice.
So man bun or not a man bun?
I'm very much on the man bun train. I miss my long hair. I want to bring it back, but as you know, it's very annoying. So I'm probably not going to.
Yeah. Cat or dog?
Oh, that's a tough one. I've only had cats. I've never had a dog. I really want a dog. My wife said I could have one when we have a yard. But I'll have to say cat because we have a cat, and he'll kill me if I say dog.
Right, man. Okay, name one position on your bucket list.
One position?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
One of the points of your bucket list.
Oh, something that's on my bucket list?
Yeah. Sorry.
I've never been a bucket list guy. I'd like to see the Northern Lights.
Okay.
It's on my bucket list.
Cool. What are your favorite color and song?
Favorite color is blue. Very simple. It's like turquoise, more on the turquoise side of blue. Favorite song, probably be For Emma, Forever Ago. Like that whole album by Bon Iver is like, I never get tired of it. It like brings me a lot of peace, and I listen to it at least once a week.
Oh, cool. I totally understand. I have to listen to the song for sure. Yeah. And the final question. Name one person you are sure that will be happy to be the next guest and talk about their journey, like you've just done. Give a popcorn to another one.
Yeah, I want to think of a good one for you.
Just tell somebody who popped in your mind.
Holly Firestone. I love her. She's incredible, funny, really smart. I'm sure she has some really good stories. So Holly Firestone, you should interview her.
Fix it. Okay, David, thank you very much. I really, if you just could see my file, you will see that there are so many questions more. But
we'll
I know
have to do round two. This is a lot of fun.
For sure. I know that, like Bess is saying, we have no limits except time limit. So that's what we have.
That's right.
Thank you very much for this conversation. I had a lot of fun. It's so nice to get to know you better. So I'm really very looking forward to having round two. So
yeah, thanks.
See you soon.
Yeah, this was a very, very unique interview. You know, people don't usually ask these kinds of questions, and I think this is where you really get to know people, and it's a lot of fun to be on the other side of it. So thanks for having me.
Thank you.